This week on the Star Trek Universe podcast, we're talking a new animated Star Trek series, the short trek Calypso trailer, and Talos. We're going to Talos. All that and more after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
What is up, David C. Robertson?
Oh, trying to get some medical stuff worked out this week.
Yeah, man. Didn't know if you'd want to talk about that on the cast, but yeah, feel free.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I've, been feeling like crap, and I eat like crap, and, turns out I have diabetes, so trying to figure that out.
Yeah, man. That's tough. That's really, really tough.
It sucks.
Yeah, for sure. It's a fear I had for a really long time. It's scary stuff, the diabetes. But as I said in text, the more you know, more information you got, the better you can handle it. And you're just going to start feeling better because now you can actually like appropriately manage what you've got going on.
That's what I've been told, but so far, my body's being kind of weird about it. It's like, no, your blood sugar should be a lot higher than this.
It's like, we're used to living high on the hog in the blood sugar department.
Yeah. So, it's like, nausea and kind of, like, what's wrong with me? So it's, little bit of a bummer, but, Yeah.
I know you'll get there where it'll only be a good thing in the future. Like you'll get to where you're feeling better than you ever have. I bet.
And by a little bit of a bummer, I mean I fell apart for a few days.
Yeah,
but
I know that I would too, man. I know I would too. Like it's scary. I've had a lot of friends and family who've been in bad situations with diabetes or had people die of diabetes, and The people that really end up in really bad shape, though, are the people who don't take care of it. So as long as you're making those steps to take care of it, like to live your life according to keeping your blood sugar in check and all that stuff, it's it's one of those things where I was never going to find the time to do this unless my life was threatened. Right. Yeah. So now I'm eating pretty well and walking every day. So yeah, one of the things that drove me to my current weight loss. I've lost 88 pounds so far. And one of the major things was I got a symptom of diabetes about a year ago. It wasn't. It turns out I don't currently have diabetes, which is great, but I got a symptom of it. And it was something I had for a while. It was a rash, actually. And it's not, I don't know, they say it's either a symptom of diabetes or obesity, but it scared me so much that it could be a symptom of diabetes that it's basically the same thing. I needed that threat to be all right, I got to get this stuff under control. And
yeah, see, I've had symptoms for years, different ones, and I'm just it's my back. My back is out, and it's causing some sort of little tingling. That'll be fine. Yeah. And they're oh, I'm tired. I didn't get enough sleep last night. I just ate a little too much. I shouldn't. It's stuff like that.
Yeah. So the big one for me is that peeing all the time, they say. And I'm always just I just drank a lot today.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always convincing myself I just drank a lot today. But yeah, finally did get checked out too. So it's, but it worried me for years and years, and it still does. I'm definitely not out of the woods. So, but anyway, we love you, Dave. And
thank you.
Me personally, and the cast, as a unit, which is just me and you, which is kind of a weird thing to say. I take it back. I love you, Dave.
Yeah. I don't really love myself. I'm pretty annoyed with myself, honestly.
I guess I meant from a global perspective, the cast loves you, all the listeners, and I'm sure they do. But right now, since it's our first week of casting, there's 6 listeners so far. So I feel that I can speak for the 6 of us and say we love you, Dave.
Yeah, one day iTunes will decide to put us on their platform.
Yeah, as soon as iTunes gets us, we're going to promote this thing like crazy. But those of you who are already listening, we love you. Thank you for checking us out. All right, let's talk about the news of the current week of Star Trek.
Well, the biggest thing to me that we should talk about right up front is that there's a freaking animated comedy called Star Trek Lower Decks. They've announced this thing. It's from Rick and Morty's Mike McMahan. This guy wrote... he wrote 5 episodes. He was the story editor on 10 episodes. And, I was looking at the episodes I've gotten listed here, and I'm like, you know what? I was going to say, hey, like, these are some of the good ones. But
they're all good.
He could have written any of them.
Yeah, any Rick and Morty episode, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's an amazing episode.
Right.
Yeah, no, Rick and Morty's amazing. It gets a bad rep because it's got some weird fandom things going on, but man, I think Rick and Morty is one of those intelligent and funny TV series on the planet. I'm a little, like, I'm going to harp on this, I'm sure, every time there's something new of Star Trek. And I'm happy that there's new Star Trek things coming. Very happy. And this sounds amazing. It's weird. Like, I don't know how I'm going to reconcile this, at least in the Prime universe.
Right.
Like, already I'm feeling that way, and I have no knowledge. It could be perfectly couched in the Prime universe. But, like, it feels weird to do a Star Trek series comedy.
Well, it depends on what he means by comedy. I mean, for honestly, for real, like, I've wanted to do a Star Trek comedy live action for a long time.
You've talked about this exact storyline before.
Pretty much this exact storyline, like do like a Lower Decks type of situation about the ensign and crewmen and stuff who don't get to be on the bridge, but make it like Scrubs, whereas like you can kind of throw away to like imaginary humor of like stuff happening on a planet. We could even delve into the red shirt thing,
for sure,
or whatever. I think it would be great, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, me too. I'm not complaining about this. I am weirded out by it because I'm like, is that Star Trek? Like, it feels like it's going to be a Star Trek parody, and to actually set it in the Star Trek universe, I'm like, that's bold and cool, and it weirds me out.
Yeah, and he has an officially licensed book, Warped and Engaging Guide to the Never Aired 8th Season of Star Trek The Next Generation. He says he has what else was there? Okay, well, I have diabetes.
I don't know if forgetfulness is one of the symptoms there, Dave.
I'm playing the card. My eyes got blurry for a minute. He says, as a lifelong Trekkie, it's a surreal and wonderful dream come true to be a part of this new era of Star Trek. While Star Trek Lower Decks is a half-hour animated show at its core, it is undeniably Star Trek. And I promise not to add an episode at the very end that reveals the whole thing took place in a training program. Then we have Kurtzman saying, Mike won our hearts with his first sentence. I want to do a show about the people who put the yellow cartridge in the food replicator so a banana can come out the other end. Kurtzman goes on. His cat's name is Riker. His son's name is Sagan. The man is committed.
That's awesome.
He's brilliantly funny and knows every inch of Star Trek. And that's his secret sauce. He writes with the pure, joyful heart of a true fan. As we broaden the world of Trek to fans of all ages, we're so excited to include Mike's extraordinary voice. Now, see, that line, fans of all ages, makes me think this is going to be maybe geared a little more towards kids.
I wonder, because Rick and Morty is obviously not.
It's not, but Rick and Morty is also, like, incredibly existentialist. It's like the polar opposite of Star Trek.
Sure. Which, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just, like, without Dan Harmon at the helm, and oh gosh, what's his other creator's name?
Justin Roiland.
Thank you. I love Justin Roiland, and I couldn't remember his name for a second. Without Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland, I don't know what a Rick and Morty-like series means, even. Because so much... I'm a huge Harmontown fan. Again, speaking of loving podcasts, as I think I have on every episode of this podcast so far, I listen to a lot of podcasts, Harmontown being one of them, and like listening to Dan Harmon speak about the way he thinks is just Rick and Morty. Like he spills Rick and Morty from his brain. Like
I think in many ways Rick, the character, is sort of based around his own thoughts about himself and his failings and his Rick is the dark version of all of Harmon's fears about himself. And I hear that in every podcast episode, and it's just I don't know what this show's going to be. Like, the fact that it's Rick and Morty, more people who've worked on Rick and Morty probably means it's going to be solid, but I just don't know what it means to not have that Harmon influence.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know what this could mean, but I'm really excited, and I'm going to jump over to what I was going to use as the last news bit. Heather Caden was recently talking to Trek Movie and was saying that they were talking about the different Trek shows that they're planning out. And she says, I think the one thing we could say, which is more general, is that it's been a real conscious effort that every project we do has its own voice and occupy its own space. I don't mean its own space in canon. I mean its own tonal vision. Because you shouldn't tune into Discovery and wonder if you flipped the channel that it was Picard. They should feel different. They should have different messages coming from different people.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I do too.
It's very much what Marvel has done.
In a way,
they have a unifying sort of tone that goes across all of them, but they're very different films and from different creators, and that's one of the things I really like about Marvel. And so taking the Trek canon and kind of expanding it out that way is cool. I like it.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, he's also Michael McMahan has written one of the Star Trek short treks called The Escape Artist. So we're going to get a little taste of how he plays in the Star Trek universe coming up soon.
That's great. Yeah, and that one's the one that's featuring Harry Mudd, which I'm excited about. I liked his episode of Discovery, and I'm excited to see what happened. You know, more from him and the clue of what might be coming for this series. I wonder what time period it'll be set. Like, what do you think? If you had to pick a time period for Star Trek animated series, what would you do?
Well, had he not said put the yellow cartridge
in the food replicator,
I would have said TNG. But he says that, so I'm thinking the original series probably.
Oh, you don't think that food replicators in the future had yellow cartridges?
Well, I never saw it.
Well, I think that's the point. That's exactly his point. Is you never saw it.
Well, specifically, we saw the yellow cartridges in the original series, like get put into the food replicator.
Right, but I think his point is that's still happening behind the scenes somewhere, or it's possible. And the fact that you wrote a book about the eighth season that never aired of TNG. That makes me think that that's a beloved time period for him, and he would like to explore that more. Like, I wonder if you're talking about these lower decks, like you could see this kind of series being completely standalone and having its own adventures, or you could see this like literally coinciding with episodes of Star Trek.
You could, yeah.
You could have like what's going on in the lower decks while the Borg are attacking at Wolf 359 or whatever. You know, like that could be really cool. This reminds me actually of a Cracked series. Have you seen you know the YouTube channel Cracked?
Yeah.
I forget the name of it, but they did a live action series of shorts that's like what's going on with the lower deck crew of a starship. And it was not obviously set in the Star Trek universe. They changed all the, particulars, but it's very similar to this idea. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm down with this. Guys, let us know what you think about the new animated Rick and Morty type of Star Trek.
Yeah.
We haven't had a Star Trek series since 1975, I guess, is when it went off.
Oh, the animated series, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a long time. Long time. I still have only seen a couple episodes of the animated series.
I think it's worth it. They introduce a lot of canon elements.
Yeah, that's what you've told me over the years. I should probably check it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's StarTrek.com now. I mean, they actually do officially consider it canon now.
Cool.
So, You know, StarTrek.com is even saying, considering it like the 4th and 5th season of the original series to some regard.
Neat. That is, by the way, one of the things I love about the quotes in here is that whoever it is specifically says that it does not occupy a different space in canon. Mm-hmm. It is still Star Trek, and that makes me happy? ?
Well, I'm also dubious because they say that about Discovery too, and I'm like, does it though?
Yeah, that's exactly why I said happy with a question mark.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I hope that's the case, but I'm a little worried that what you think of as canon and what I think of as canon might be different.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, you can headcanon it into a different universe all you want.
Right.
They can't make you think differently.
But it doesn't. One of the major reasons I like Star Trek is because it's all connected. Same way with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I like it because it's all connected. And if you start doing things that don't make sense, it's one thing to like not acknowledge another series, but it's a different thing to make things that break canon, and I don't like it.
Well, you know, Star Trek has done plenty of things to break canon, first of all.
Sure.
Second of all, you know, if we're going by the parallels example, there are so many different universes. There's an infinite number of universes.
Right.
Everything is 100% possible.
Sure.
So within that context, it absolutely is canon.
Yeah. But you go by alternate. If you're gonna throw me into an alternate universe, I kind of feel the same way I do about death not mattering. Like nothing has consequences. Like I want the results of like the Klingons and the Federation have a war and it ends this way. That has ripples through the entire Star Trek universe for the rest of time. And if you jump around from universe to universe, nothing matters. It's just like how everybody complains about the Marvel universe. I keep bringing up Marvel universe. But if we were having a drinking game, that should be the thing. If Matt brings up the Marvel universe.
It's not all connected. It's a lie.
So death doesn't matter because they keep rebooting everyone's death. But it's the same thing in Star Trek. If you like keep jumping universes, then nothing matters, you know.
I'm not sure that's true, but
I mean, you can have a great standalone story. That's fine, and I'm all up for that. But then why am I watching it why do I care about watching every episode of a thing? If it's all doesn't matter. If they're not gonna pay attention to canon, then I have no reason to care about seeing everything.
I don't know. I sort of just I like the franchise. I like the ideas of it. So I think there's something to be said for that. But it's not like watching every episode of the original series or every episode of The Next Generation or even DS9 or any of them.
Yeah.
Really always like it wasn't connected so much that I felt like, you know, you couldn't miss a few.
Well, no, definitely not. But I just that's why I feel as a completist, I feel compelled to watch something if it's all kind of connected and drawn together by a canon. And when they just disregard it, I don't like it. If they give me a reason why, you know, we needed to change this because the times have changed or this or that, I can get behind certain minor changes, but like if you just disregard it just because you don't feel like adhering, like that's annoying to me.
I tell you what annoys the hell out of me.
What's that?
And we surely fillate DS9 enough, but they just changed the Bajoran makeup and the Trill makeup.
Oh yeah.
That drives me nuts.
Yeah. I haven't seen I think it was Next Generation episodes where they're introduced where they were enough to really care. But yeah, I'm annoyed by that too.
Yeah, like the Trill has bumps the Trill in Next Generation has bumps on their head. The symbiote is the full personality, which takes over the personality of the person.
Right.
So I mean, when they went to go put the bumps on Terry Farrell's head, one of the producers was like, "What the hell is this? What are you covering up her beautiful face for?" Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Well, that's what the Trill has." And he was like, "No, just put spots on her like Famke."
Yeah, real dumb.
Famke was a different alien on Next Generation who had like the Dax spots,
that kind of stuff.
So
pisses me off.
Me too.
I like to just. Okay, I'm gonna have to disregard that one episode that they originally came from. That's no longer canon in my head. Like that has to happen for me.
That's not what I do. I try to headcanon some like weird story of like, oh, that was like a weird subsect of symbiote and Trill. Like that was a different like subsect of society. Blah, blah, blah.
It really depends on the flaw which one I do. But in that case, if it's a small enough piece of canon, I can just be like, and yoink. That's no longer canon in my head.
There's like specifically one episode of the animated series. I don't remember which one it is because I'm a bad fan. But there's like specifically one that is completely just not really canon at all. Like there's no way to fit it in just because it's like, I think it was written by Larry Niven, and he just like wrote in his own like characters from his own books.
Weird.
Yeah, and it's just like, well, there's no way we can reconcile this.
No, that's real weird. I mean, sort of, you can say you can just say those books aren't canon. That's fine. Like because they're literally not. Like that doesn't ruin canon that you could have the same character. By the way, I don't know if anyone wants to listen to us like rattle on about how this intensely about canon for this long, but it's exactly what I want to do.
That's exactly what I want to do too.
So I hope you guys are enjoying us prattling on about what canon means and what we can get over and what we can't, because it'll probably happen a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably going to happen quite a bit. I'm sorry, guys. This is who we are. So we've got a new trailer for the Calypso short trek.
Yeah, we do.
I think it looks cool. It's another thing though where I'm kind of bummed out they're using Discovery, the ship, but I can't be really mad about it.
On Discovery?
That's what it looks like.
That's weird.
That's what it looks like. It looks like it's obviously they're going to use the sets.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know that it is on Discovery. It says in the trailer 1,000 years after Discovery.
Mm-hmm. But the ship is has dust on the panels and everything.
Right. Well, okay. So that is possible. It's possible they'll do some sort of like pocket timeline thing too, or whatever. But the big headline here is not that it's in a Discovery. The big headline is it's 1,000 years after Discovery. Like this is farther in the future than we've ever talked about on Star Trek. Even in the 29th century time travelers in in Voyager and Enterprise had some far distant time travelers too, but even in all of that, 1,000 years past Discovery is beyond those guys.
Yeah.
So what? I don't even know. Again, it's very very similar feelings that I have about them going into this weird comedy animation. I'm excited. That's cool. Let's do this. But are you again talking about like we talked about last week with the Tilly short trek? Are you taking too big a swings with such a small piece of canon? You're predicting the 1,000 years into the future of what might happen? That's strange to me. That is strange to me.
I mean, he's the director, Olatunde Asun-Sanmi. I think that's pretty accurate. Maybe. He directed some episodes of Discovery. He did The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry and West Pass's Prologue. They were good episodes. I would say every episode after the first two were great. So I'm down with that. I don't like Michael Chabon. I don't know his work, but he is going to be an executive producer and writer on the new Picard show. And that is set in 2399, by the way. So, again, that we're going to get a little taste of this guy's work.
That's cool.
And how he deals with Star Trek in this short trek. There's not a whole lot more to talk about. There's this weird little giggling AI.
If it's an AI.
If it's an AI,
it could be a communication device of some sort. But yeah, I got the vibe that it was an AI as well.
Mm-hmm.
So So giggling AI, so emotional AI, that's a big deal. An AI that seems almost pure emotion, at least in that moment. So that's interesting. I really love this actor.
I don't know
him. He was on a show called Leverage.
Okay, I do remember Leverage.
Leverage with the guy who played Lindsay on Angel. I forget his name. You probably know it.
Yeah, Christian Kane.
Yeah, that's it. Christian Kane is on that show as well, and that's why I watched it. I was like, hey, it's Christian Kane. More accurately, I was like, hey, it's Lindsay from Angel.
Right.
But he's great on that show, and this guy is like plays the hacker on that show, and their interactions are really great. Like Christian Kane plays kind of the violent enforcer, and he plays the hacker, and they're always kind of like they're on a team of like an Ocean's 11 style team. I love it. It's actually a really fun show. It's like a USA original or something like that. That's not like the highest quality television, but like it does some really fun things. Fun show. Anyway, I like him a lot. He was great on that show, and I think he does a good comedy, but also good like weighty sort of. He can handle weighty content well. Like he does emotion well, and so that's exciting, especially if they're doing this whole sort of like Castaway episode of Star Trek where it's just one character sitting on a ship by himself, which seems like what they're going for, but that's purely based on the trailer, so who knows. But if this is like him on a ship by himself, he's like, I think he has the charisma to carry an episode like that. So that's cool. Excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm very interested to see what they're doing with this.
Yeah, me too. And it's just, again, like they keep taking these huge swings. It's like, let's do a comedy series, but it is in this universe. Let's do let's do something set so far in the future. Let's do a thing where Tilly meets a queen. Like, why does it have to be such big swings? Every episode of Star Trek should not be such big swings, you know?
I don't think they're going to do big swings for all of them. Like the Saru episode, I think, is pretty much just going to be
him getting eaten.
Yeah. I believe it's going to be mostly like flashbacks and showing how he came to be in Starfleet.
That's cool.
With hints at something in season 2.
Cool. Well, yeah. I'm on board, you know.
Sure.
I just am. They just everything they say about new Star Trek is so bold that I'm like, all right, interesting and scary. Everything you're saying to me is interesting and scary.
I'm not scared anymore because I feel like it's already been broken so much that I'm just going to enjoy the ride.
Right. If they don't do something to bring it into some sort of cohesion, I will over time lose interest because I won't feel like it's connected, and I just won't feel. I'll feel like, I'll watch the Star Trek I like, and not all Star Trek, you know. Mm-hmm. Because like it became that way with. I'm trying to think of a series that. I mean, honestly, like, so it reminds me of like Star Wars, the way that like. They have these cartoons and stuff that I've heard are actually really good. So I don't fault them at all. But I just don't really watch that many cartoons. So I just don't watch any of the cartoon stuff that Star Wars does. You know, and I watch all the movies. If they come out with a series, I'll probably check it out. But it's very likely that I'll just be like, all right, that's fine. I'll keep watching the movies and maybe I'll catch the series here and there. But and part of it is I'm just not as big of a fan of Star Wars. But like. I don't know. I like a series that is compelling enough that I feel like I need to watch all of it. Even with like Doctor Who. Love Doctor Who. But I never watched the Sarah Jane Adventures. You know? It was for kids. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they're going that way where they're just like going to produce so much Star Trek that's just different for everybody. But yeah. I'd like them to keep me interested.
I think that's the only way for them to grow. Honestly.
Maybe. Again, I bring up what I brought up on the first episode of this podcast. What about the 10-year-old right now who would respond to a show like Next Generation, but is only getting fed the cartoon version? You know, and so they'll always think of Star Trek as this thing that pandered down to them instead of like something that met them at their level. You know,
well, we don't know that it's going to pander down to them.
No, I know. I'm saying that's what I worry about. But you're saying it's okay to kind of split the fandom into like lots of different things because it might attract new people, and that's true. It might. It's very, very well could. They've always done that. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was reading the like Worf at Starfleet books or whatever.
Yeah,
you
get the little YA novels.
Yeah, they had little YA novels, and I read that stuff. There's nothing. But I also read the, Q Squared or whatever, one of the more complicated, Star Trek novels that I've read. I liked the full spread of Star Trek stuff.
I remember you reading the Worf YA novels, and you're like, "This is pretty good." And I'm like, "I don't want to read about Worf at the Academy."
Yeah, I did. I always thought an Academy series would be cool. I still do. I still think like that. To me, that's a way to go young and like tell somewhat compelling stories. Just have you could have a Harry Potter version of Star Trek but it's just young because it's about younger people, learning how to do their thing and like having some sort of adventures kind of thrust upon them, similar to a Potter type story.
I thought it's funny because you keep talking about bringing in the fan base. I just remember when 2009 Star Trek was announced, the fans were complaining that it was Star Trek 90210, and I'm like, you guys are so dated. It's been like 20 years since 90210 was on.
You're all very old. like you're not only are you so old with your complaint, but your reference to make the complaint is that old. Come on, guys. It's like Star Trek the OC. Matt, that's still 15 years old. Shit.
Well, back then, 2008 when they were making the complaints.
Right, I'm just teasing. I was just trying to bring up a slightly newer thing that still shows I'm old.
Yeah. All right, so talking about bringing stuff into canon, the producers at New York Comic Con were talking about bringing stuff into alignment. Trek Movie asked, is the cage a touchstone for bringing the season into alignment with canon? Kurtzman said, we're going to bring everything into alignment at the end of the season and the cage will be touched on, but in ways that I think are hopefully surprising and unexpected. I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed in my time working on Star Trek is looking at the stories that have been told, but then really examining them for the gray areas, the areas where certain things can be filled in or built on without violating canon. So that's a big part of what we're doing this season.
Very interesting. I'm going to hold him to that.
I don't think he's talking aesthetically, though.
Right. And I don't care as much about aesthetics. I know I totally understand that you do.
That also fits into like the technology that we both have a problem with.
Well, no, see, I don't think it does. And I like what something can do versus what something looks like is different to me. And the most extreme on the line version of that for me is that holographic computing or whatever, or holographic communication.
Just all the hologram stuff to me is just like, what are we doing, guys? This is toggle switches and sliders.
You could say that, but you could also say that stuff could have existed. It just wasn't being used on the Enterprise. Now I know that we apparently there's is it DS9 episode where they invent that holographic technology or something like that. Or
they don't really invent it; they just show it, and it's like it's not as good as what we're seeing on Discovery, but it's like kind of we've just never seen it before. I don't remember exactly if they said anything about.
Oh, see, I thought.
Oh, this is new.
When I was and I did not do my research. I wasn't doing a podcast at the time. But when I was watching Discovery, someone posted something about how that was new technology in DS9, being able to transmit holographic versions of yourself in communication. Like they mentioned that it's new technology. They may not have. I'd have to go back and check into it.
They may have. I've read the same thing.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I can't remember.
Okay, well. If that's true, that's annoying. But I can headcanon it, and I just hate having to talk about how much I'm having to headcanon. I can headcanon it and just be like, maybe it's maybe it was like upgrading from SD to HD. Maybe these are just better holograms. I don't know. Because honestly, the holograms on Discovery aren't great. They're like particularly pixelated. So it's very possible that like in DS9, they just had better quality ones or something. I can headcanon around some of that stuff. But the thing that bothers me is like stuff like transporting over a long distance, or which we talked about last week, or traveling at the wrong speeds, things that like they established they couldn't do at this time period. If they have like different lights on the Enterprise or whatever, I know that bothers you a lot, or even a different, slightly different shape or whatever. That stuff doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah, well, part of it is just because the original Enterprise, all of the iterations from the Cage to the original series to the movies, I love the design, and I respect the design of the ships almost to an unhealthy level.
Right. I get that. And I get it, and I'm not in that same camp, but I understand the impulse.
and so much about what brings me into the feeling of Star Trek is seeing that aesthetic, like looking at those knobs and toggle switches and little sliders and whatnot and levers.
Yeah,
I love that shit. I love it. And I love like looking at Next Generation and seeing that aesthetic, and then like seeing it progress.
Right, and I really hope. So Discovery is a top secret research vessel, and maybe it has some technology that other ships don't. And like, I don't mind that Discovery is different than the Enterprise. It will slightly bother me if we get the Enterprise, which we apparently will because we saw it at the end of the season, and like, it's completely different, you know?
It is. It is. I've seen too many stills of them inside the Enterprise. Like, the corridors, everything is different. It's just so different.
Can you send me those stills? I'm curious, like, how... Because I know from your perspective, because you love this stuff so much, you get so granular, that you think it's incredibly different, and I'm wondering how I will feel, because... someone who doesn't... I don't have the same affection for, like, the ship, you know? Like, I love it, but I don't... I just don't have the same... The aesthetic doesn't matter to me as much. And I can just headcanon it as a refit or whatever. It was this way right before the Cage, and maybe they get a refit right before the Cage or something, you know?
Well, the Cage and... Between the Cage and... Well... Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot would happen in between the Cage and the original series proper.
Right.
And it didn't really change very much. Like, there are very light cosmetic changes to the ship.
Sure.
On the exterior. I don't think they're gonna go like super technological and change the design so much and then go back.
It just depends on what you mean by technological.
Futuristic. What do you want, man?
Yeah. Well, no, that's the thing. Is like, what does it mean to be technological or futuristic? Because I'm looking at stills from the original series right now, and just like the outside of the ship. Sure, there's differences, but they just don't bother me all that much. It definitely looks a lot more like 2009 Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But yeah, I don't see the stills that I haven't seen stills of the interior yet.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, Discovery seems just like a top secret vessel. It's all dark. It looks like as was much talked about, it looks like the beginnings of something like a Section 31. And I would expect if you went on the Enterprise, like the flagship vessel would be a lot more, Oh yeah, that looks nothing like the Enterprise. Dave just sent me a still of the new set. That looks like TNG ish.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like later movies.
Yeah, that looks like Enterprise E or something.
Yeah, it doesn't look like which I understand their desires to move forward and make it look cooler by today's standards. Like, and I don't even, and I'm not looking at anything on there that looks like it couldn't be technologically possible. So there's also this idea that when you talk about what's technologically possible, you also have to consider when they wrote the Star Trek series in 1960s, they were looking forward to a technology they could only imagine, right?
Right.
Well, there are certain aspects of Star Trek that we kind of have to accept might evolve because they don't make any sense given like today's technology.
See, now that's part of the thing I wanted, and I always want, is like I would love for that to be like explained. If it was just a style choice, if there was some sort of enemy threat, sort of like Battlestar Galactica, how they had to go all like super old school and couldn't have like the same kinds of computer systems because of a certain alien threat.
Right.
I want that. I want that explanation.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened.
Which I don't know that we'll get. And I do. Part of Star Trek.
I know we're not going to get it.
Part of Star Trek is the idea that it does kind of exist in our universe. At least that's been said in many different versions of Trek and many different movies and television shows. They've done things. Okay. Yeah, the corridor. I'm looking at a corridor. I can't see enough of it, but yeah, it looks a little old original series-ish to me. It doesn't look like the original series corridors, but it looks original series-ish.
Right. But see, I feel like if you're going to say it's Prime Universe, that's my only qualm. That's my only hang-up. If you're going to say it's Prime Universe, make it the Prime Universe.
Right.
Like, Next Generation was set, 80, 90 years after the original series. And, 20 years after the actual show? But when Scotty went to that holodeck, that bridge looked exactly the same. They didn't update it. They didn't try to pretend that it didn't look like that.
Right.
And the same thing with Enterprise on what was it, Through a Mirror Darkly or whatever. It was fantastic looking.
You're talking about different things, though, and I'm not disagreeing with you that they should just make it look like the original series. Like I'm completely with you. They should not just redo everything for redoing everything's sake. I am of the mind that they shouldn't be telling a story in this time period. Like, I
think if they were going to, it should be like in like an anthology. Like, yeah, do a short Trek. Do like a stylized retro sci-fi adventure.
Yeah.
Or make it a holodeck adventure in the future or something. Don't, if you want to do something and place it with something in that time period.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. If you're going to, I don't want to harp on it too much because I feel like we talk about this.
We do that a lot.
Constantly.
Already.
We're on our 5th episode and we're already like our 16th conversation about this exact topic.
This is like me and Jason on DC on Screen. The first few episodes, all we did was like complain about the color grading on Man of Steel.
Right. And I do hate the color grading on Man of Steel. I'm glad we can agree to that. But no, I love I just feel like you're either going to set it at the same time period, then respect the time period and respect the technology and respect the design, or don't do that. Like, move forward. Like, if you don't,
like you were talking about earlier, respect the restrictions.
Exactly. And there are ways to respect the restrictions and still get the canon you want, like or like the time period you want. Discovery could have been its own ship. But then you have to throw the Enterprise in there, and it's them making big swings. It's like, you know what? We got to get back to the Enterprise. It just smacks of kind of, to me, what Star Trek does is takes itself and makes itself more and more insular. It always has to be about this character and these things. It's nice when you have like the Next Generation, when it was created, 20 something years later after the original series, and when it was created, it was a completely new thing, new crew. It referenced old things, but it's like it created this new crew, new thing. It didn't have to reference Kirk constantly, I don't know how many times Kirk was mentioned on the Next Generation, but it wasn't many, And
yeah, I think there was the Naked Now
And, of course, they had McCoy in the first episode,
right.
Encounter at Farpoint. They had Spock show up in Unification, parts 1 and 2, and they had Scotty show up in Relics.
Yes. So
I think that was about it.
And, I can imagine they might have mentioned, oh, yes, James T. Kirk was a... Like, I could imagine them mentioning it, like, as a history lesson at some point. But they just don't do it much because they're not relying on it. And that's how you create... one of the most indelible Star Treks is you create it as a thing that can stand on its own. And so I feel like Discovery, bringing in the Enterprise in Season 2, it feels like just pandering to this sort of like, oh, we have to tell a Spock story because Spock's the popular thing. And it doesn't matter to me. It might be a great story, and I'm on board to check it out and like enjoy it, but it's just rife with issues.
Now, see, this is interesting because that goes into what their next question was, which character arc was the most satisfying to develop for Season 2? And they talked about Michael Burnham, but Kurtzman said Spock in many ways. And he says, I'm excited about Spock this season because this is literally the only season in which we could tell this story about Spock. So there's a big reason to do it now. I don't know what that means.
Well, I don't either. I wonder if it's because they're getting so close to the time of the cage or whatever, and they need to tell a story before he was the man he was in the cage.
Yeah, I don't know if... I would think the cage had already happened, but
oh, really?
Maybe not. Okay. Maybe. Well, it depends because you can play with the timeline a lot because the star dates don't make any sense in the original series.
Sure.
Gene Roddenberry didn't ever want to say what century it was in. So in the original series, they'll say that, certain things in the past were 500 years ago or 200 years ago or whatever it was.
Right.
Because Roddenberry did that kind of crap. And but when they said how, when we look at the menagerie and they say how long ago the cage was, they said it was 15 years ago. So it just depends on at what point in the 5-year mission the menagerie took place. It's iffy. They can play with it for sure.
Yeah. And there's wiggle room. There's wiggle room, and there's obviously apparently there's just flaws to the canon already that like make it like, well, we're just choosing at this time to rely on this piece of canon. But I just need a unification. Parts 1 and 2.
But Kurtzman goes on, he says he's excited about the story that he gets to tell with Spock this season. He says it's the unwritten chapter of Spock. It's not the Spock that you know from the beginning of TOS. This is pre-TOS Spock. He is not that formed Vulcan yet. To be fair, he wasn't in the original series. At the beginning of the original series, he smiled a lot, for instance. Seemed to overreact to things sometimes. Anyway, he's not that formed Vulcan yet. His experience with the Red Angel and the signals, the 7 signals, whatever that is, has fried his logical brain. He cannot make sense of it. He is emotionally ill-equipped to deal with it, so both logic and emotion are failing him totally. And he is totally unsure of himself and trying to figure out how to make sense of the mystery and where he fits into the world. And it's through his complicated relationship with his sister that he's able to figure out how to become and actualize himself as the Spock you know from TOS. It's exciting to us because it in no way violates canon. It just builds on what's been set before. One of the things I think is funny is like one of the things fans hated the most about Star Trek V was that they introduced a brother that no one ever knew about.
Right.
And which never bothered me, honestly.
Sure, me neither.
And the Star Trek and then these guys like who claim they're Star Trek fans come in like, you know what we should do? We should introduce another sibling.
Well, I just think, me and you have this conversation all the time about our podcasts. There's always people that are going to hate whatever you do.
Sure.
And like, you just have to do what you do. You just have to create the thing you want to create. We have to have the conversations we want to have. They have to create the thing they want to create. And like, so yeah, sure, maybe some people hated the idea that there was a brother, but honestly, it was a small sliver of the fandom that really hated that. Most people can easily logic, oh, he had a brother, we just never knew, no big deal. Like, but you get to, someone who hates something is so vocal that you get
maybe
and maybe enough people hated it that you crossed the line there or whatever. But I just think it is very, very possible that you just need to ignore the haters, as it were. Yeah, that sounds like a trite thing to say, but I think like it's actually pretty. When you're creating, you can't worry about what everyone is saying about what
Yeah, yeah.
Because most of the time you're just hearing the loudest people, you're not hearing the most people.
Yeah, maybe. In the case of Star Trek V, I'm pretty sure most people hate that movie.
I'm not saying they don't hate the movie, but I don't think that's why. There's a lot of reasons to hate Star Trek V that have nothing to do with a like a non-issue. I just think the idea that he has a brother is a non-issue. Like, it's not like he didn't say he had another episode where he said, "I'm an only child, by the way." It's just, and their lifespans are so much longer that you're just like, okay, yeah, it's very like, I barely talk to my brother. I love my brother a lot, but I see him like every 5 years at this point, like, because we both live in different cities.
I think it was. Like, people often cite, like, oh, he has a brother that he's never mentioned. Well, that was explained in the movie. He was a heretic,
right.
But also, the other thing that they're so angry about is that Sarek was married before Amanda. And I'm like, that's some, like, fandom shit, man. You got to get over that.
Yeah. Again, their lifespans are so much longer than ours. Like,
just because you think Sarek and Amanda is like relationship goals, I mean, are you mad at Perrin and TNG for having married Sarek after Amanda passed away? Come on, guys.
It's real weird. That's real weird. What was she human as well? His first wife?
No, she was a Vulcan princess.
Okay. Sorry, I don't remember the movie that well. I'm sure we'll rewatch it at some point.
I think that I actually always liked that because it makes even more sense why Sarek is so down on Spock. Like, he has a full Vulcan child who embraces emotion and becomes a heretic, basically, and is banished from Vulcan.
Right, it makes sense that he would be so hard on Spock about being more Vulcan.
I think it adds a depth to Sarek that we never saw before. But, whatever, guys. I mean, there's a lot of sins from Star Trek V, but I don't think that's one of them.
Cool.
I'm just going to sit here and sip my tea.
Yeah. I just all the things that Kurtzman said, I'm just going to hold them to the idea that he thinks they will bring everything into alignment by the end of the season.
Yeah. And, like, oh, by the way, they asked if we were visiting any planets in Season 2 that we've seen before. Talos.
Talos.
He says we're going to Talos.
Remind me what Talos is.
It's from The Cage.
Oh, okay. Great. I just watched The Cage. I knew I'd heard that name before. Cool. That's exciting.
They asked if any of the behind-the-scenes changes have affected the direction for Season 2. There were behind-the-scenes changes. There were some showrunners who apparently were pretty rough to deal with, and they have been taken care of. But Kurtzman says we always had certain pillars. Here's how I like to structure a season. This is something that you and I talk about, how you write a thing. I just thought was interesting. Here's how I like to structure a season when you're in the room. You spend the first couple of months talking about what you want the show to be, and you ideally decide on an outcome. We want the finale to be here. This is where we're going to end. And so once you know that, you can reverse engineer your season very strategically to get that outcome. It's really critical. So I always think of it as like there are going to be 4 major pivot points that I want to identify at the beginning to know how to get to that place. But I don't want to fill in too many of the gaps, because if I fill in too many of the gaps, it doesn't leave room to be surprised as we continue to break the story throughout the season. So it's a matter of having a structure that allows you the freedom to improvise.
Neat.
We've often talked about writing backwards.
Oh, yeah.
I think The Simpsons was the first thing. Like, specifically the episode with the Tamakis. The tobacco tomatoes. And we were, like, trying to figure out how they got from, like, Homer slapping a Southern gentleman with a glove and challenging him. How we got from that to them, like...
I've often thought that about The Simpsons. Like, The Simpsons seems like sometimes like they just come up with an insane ending and then they just like try to figure out how to make that insane thing happen on screen. Like they're just such a smart show.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's all I've got, man. That's all I've got for the news.
Well, I like it.
That sounds like you like it a little too much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like that we're getting so much new Star Trek. Like, I'm really excited about it. I want to know more about the Picard series, and we should do an episode soon where we just like run down all the facts we have on the new Star Trek, the new Picard series. But I don't think we have much yet.
I mean, the Next Generation cast has pretty much said they don't know anything about it, so they're probably not going to be involved. Marina Sirtis, kind of sounding bitter, said, "Don't hold your breath. It's a Picard series, not a Next Generation series."
Right. I have a feeling we'll see some of them at some point. Particularly the ones that have turned out to be, bigger actors and stuff. I think we'll get them back. I think it's very possible we'll see Worf again. It's very possible we'll see Geordi again.
Michael Dorn said that he would come back for a Worf series on CBS All Access, but he doesn't want to do a cameo because it's not worth it.
Yeah, I think he will.
All the makeup and stuff.
Right.
He says he doesn't want to do a cameo.
I think he would. I think he's playing hardball because he wants to get a series made, but let's face it, if they gave him a really great episode, paid him good money, and like say they gave him like a great way to like a great death for Worf, like and it also just depends on how the series is received. Like say they make a first season, it's just highly critically acclaimed, and it's become like the new Game of Thrones or whatever that everyone's talking about. All those people would love to be on that show. No one has big enough careers where they're like, nah, don't need it.
Yeah. They are apparently planning seasons with the Picard show, and I'm sort of like, do you know how old Patrick Stewart is, guys?
Yeah, but he's real healthy. Yeah, sure, anyone could die, but I love it. Yeah.
I don't say that to be callous.
No, but and also that's what insurance is for. Like from a financial perspective, like it sucks, but they actually do financially cover themselves in case of that, problem.
I know, but as a fan, I'm like, I don't want this to not have an ending.
Sure. But
I don't want to lose Patrick Stewart and not have an ending.
I had to bring that up. I don't only care about his death because I wouldn't get an ending to the series. Just want to make that clear.
Right.
But that's no reason not to try to make something.
I know.
Eventually, yeah, we're all gonna die. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we can't start something. It's very possible we'll die before he will. He's a healthy man. He's got that crazy Hollywood, that Hollywood money that keeps you young forever.
Yep. And I'm broke with Beatus.
Yep.
That sounds like a 1970s sitcom. Broke with Beatus. No, it sounds like an 80s sitcom. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a different world, man. They can live a lot longer. He'll probably be the first man to live to like 150. And there'll be like 50 or 30 seasons of a Picard series.
We're talking about this today, and it'll be like released tomorrow that he died. Like
right.
That's what's going to happen.
No, it's possible. Who knows? Let's hope not. Let's hope that
I absolutely hope not.
For he's a very good man and a national treasure of an actor.
He's an international treasure.
That's true.
He's a knight. A knight, I say.
Well, we should. Hopefully, we'll get some information on the Picard series soon because I really would like to do an episode where we like have some facts and then we can do some speculation about where they might go with the series. I've heard a lot of people talking about it. Like, is he even going to be in Starfleet anymore? Is he going to be I don't see him as a Kirk type that has to maintain his ship for one thing. So I think like it would make a lot of sense if he's like an admiral.
Yeah, just starting to suffer the onset Irumodic syndrome. Just starting. Just starting to lose it a little bit.
Yeah. That would be very Professor X of him.
Very Logan.
Very, very Logan. And they probably saw that and were like, ooh, He could really make a Picard series with that right now. Actually, that's pretty great. I want to know, 20 years in the future, how long has it been since Voyager? 15?
Voyager ended in 2001.
Yeah, almost 20 years after Voyager. Like, what is the relations between the Borg and the Federation at this point? Because like all these other races we've come in contact with in Star Trek, like 2 series later, or like a series later, they're just on the ship. Even the Borg, you know, like you got the Klingons are like kind of the bad guys, and then you've got a Klingon on the ship, and then you've got the Ferengi are kind of the bad guys. And then you have a Ferengi main character. The Cardassians are kind of the bad guys, but then by the end of the DS9, they're fighting side by side. The Borg never seemed like that would be a possibility, like an actual alliance or a peaceful resolution, because they are bent on the destruction and assimilation of everyone. Not destruction. Destruction's the wrong word.
You know how it would go is they make some sort of treaty that they only assimilate those people who are into it. Like there could be,
it's like a consent conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I'm with you. So I'm with you. We have people who are really into body modifications.
Sure.
What if you could have body modifications as well as access to millions of minds?
Yeah. No, if you chose to be assimilated, there could absolutely be people who would choose to be assimilated. Back to Rick and Morty. That the guy who is working on this show, he made autoerotic assimilation. That actually sounds like a plot from Lower Decks, like a guy who's like a little fascinated with the Borg, a little too fascinated with the Borg.
That makes perfect sense. Thinking about that episode, the Patton Oswalt Borgs.
They're so great. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, we will be back soon, guys, with lots more Star Trek. We are the Star Trek Universe Podcast. StarTrekUcast.com, everybody. Go over there. You can find us. We should be on iTunes this week. I'm really thinking we'll get approved for iTunes this week, and we can actually really launch this sucker and get a lot of people, get access to a lot of people. So if you're not hearing this right now, then this means nothing. But you might be able to hear it soon. That doesn't make any sense. Why am I talking to people who might not have found the show yet?
I don't know, man. It's just a lone subspace signal bouncing off of planet stuff in the ether.
Planet stuff. You can tell
ran out of words.
You can tell we've been reading Star Trek fiction our whole lives. When you come up with gems like planet stuff.
I'm no Michael Jan Friedman, man. I'm just not.
All right, guys. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at StarTrekUcast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollmusic.com or anywhere you get music.